Oliver is an orphan child who was born at a public workhouse in which he suffers from constant abuse and starvation. He eventually escapes from his hometown and goes to London, and there he meets a criminal gang controlled by a man called Fagin, who wants Oliver to pick pockets for him. Oliver, both bewildered and terrified, refuses to do so and is caught in the crowd. Oliver soon falls into illness, but his prosecutor, Mr. Brownlow, cannot find any evidence of Oliver's accused crime, and so he brings Oliver home and helps him recover as atonement. There, Oliver experiences a short period of happiness, but one day, on an outdoor quest in which Oliver is eager to do so, he is taken back by Fagin's company by one of his goons, a woman named Nancy. Oliver, upset, comes to terms with the idea that he may never see Mr. Brownlow again. Sometime after, another man of the gang, Sykes, takes Oliver to the country, where he forces Oliver to creep inside a house and open its door for burglary. Again, Oliver, too kind to perform the crime, hesitates and is shot by the housekeeper. Oliver returns to the house for aid and receives kindness. He later tells his past to the owner of the home, Lady Maylie, and her niece, Rose Maylie, and spends what he describes as his happiest months. Nancy, the woman who takes Oliver back to the gang, regrets her decision and finds Rose Maylie, telling her the location of the gang and Fagin's discussion with another man called Monks of Oliver's past. Rose learns that Oliver is not a mere orphan and wants to find out his background. Sykes, Nancy's lover, hears what Nancy has done and kills her in cold blood. Fagin and his company are captured, and Fagin himself is sentenced to die. Sykes, while trying to escape the pursuing crowds, accidentally hangs himself with his own rope. Monks, caught by Mr. Brownlow, confesses what he did and Oliver's past. Oliver, now free of danger, lives happily with his friends. Oliver Twist was written during the Victorian era, a time where the rich and privileged lived eloquent, excessive, and flashy lifestyles, whereas in contrast to the poor that were subjected to abject poverty and inhumane working conditions. The Victorian era can be compared to the Gilded Age, a term derived from Mark Twain in his novel The Gilded Age, A Tale of Today, where serious social problems were masked by a thin gold gilding. In his novel Oliver Twist, Dickens reveals England as a country of what Benjamin Disraeli defined as two nations, the rich and privileged and the poor. Both Dickens and Disraeli convey in their works a contrast between the luxurious life of the aristocracy and the extreme poverty of the working class. Oliver Twist was Dickens' first attempt to cause political reform and awareness of the corruptness of the Poor Laws of 1834. Oliver is an orphan child, and his experiences are Dickens' way of illustrating to the reader of the disturbing and gruesome childhood many orphans were subjected to under these laws. Dickens also illustrates to the reader the absurdity of the poor laws through the perspective of a young, innocent Oliver, who frequently cannot comprehend why he is treated so inhumanely. In conclusion, the Victorian era mirrored the society seen in Oliver Twist, two opposite classes divided, the rich and the poor.
In Oliver Twist, Dickens showed in order for society to improve, individuals need to concern more of others, because the public charity failed its purpose. Oliver Twist, an orphan who lives at a workhouse, struggles through each day with starvation. The workhouse wants to send him away because he demands for more food. On the way out of the workhouse, after the inquiry of his condition by the beadle of the church, he weeps and says, "I'll be good indeed. Indeed I will, sir. I'm a very little child, sir, and it is so lonely. Everybody hates me." Workhouse is supposedly a place to help people with difficulties in their living, but children like Oliver struggles to live in such a place because hardly any official from the workhouse actually care about their well-being. But even so, those officials expect ardent gratitude from the poor. Therefore, Oliver says that he's well, partly from his own agitation of hardship, but most importantly from the way he is expected to stay in the workhouse, even when gratitude is hardly to be felt. Oliver's view of others changes as he ends up with Mrs. Maylie's family, a group of people more generous and kind, and there he experiences care never felt before. And 3 months which, in the life of the most blessed and favored of mortals, might have been unmingled happiness, and which in Oliver's were true felicity, the purest and most amiable generosity on one side, and the truest, warmest, soul-filled gratitude on the other. Unlike the workhouse, in which people are treated like animals, Mainly family does not want anything from Oliver in return. It merely shows compassion with respect. In this family, Oliver does not feel like a pitiable individual who is not worth living, but someone who can be taken care of, a participant of the society. Dickens, through Oliver Twist, showed that the poverty and misery of the society of his time were not mainly of the paupers, but of the carelessness of the general community itself, and that accomplished people could not just hold still and expect the rest of the population to be as successful as they are. For like Oliver Twist, people did not start their lives with the same background, and in order to make a change, people with ability to help need to take a more involving role in the society.
Dickens' style is more on the complex side. His sentences are long and in-depth. For example, in Oliver Twist, the author goes into depth and describes the scenery of London. Dickens' diction is much abstract and detailed to bring the setting of many situations that occur throughout the novel. An example of Oliver Twist would be where the author says, "The Jew nodded his head toward Nancy, who was gazing at the fire and intimidatingly by a sign that he would have to hold the room." Notice how the author is not periodic in his syntax, as he is complex. The author visualizes a point where the prostitute Nancy is staring at a fireplace, which is written in much depth. The dialogue in the novel is fairly simple. The author's diction while writing the dialogue is more slang. For example, a character named Noah, who always makes fun of Oliver, tends to be informal with his speaking. He replies directly to Oliver by saying, "You're no workhouse. It can't be helped now. And of course, you couldn't help it then." When talking about the death of his mother, Noah, who was a child from a broken family, tends to insult Oliver deeply for once residing in a workhouse, which was considered of the lower class at that point. The child's grammar is a symbol of the poverty and illiteracy in such an area of England. 19th century Europe itself was heading through a lot of trouble and depth with America, and having a proper education was the last priority. Notice how his sentence is simple. The author uses the similar pattern throughout the novel. The novel itself has a big mixture of this style.